Hi, welcome everyone. Today we're talking about all the books I've read so far this year. Maybe not all of them. But this year, for some reason, just started out with me reading the best fantasy book series that I've read in like a while. So I want to talk about them. So I usually set myself a reading goal every year, but actually for this year, I had decided to give myself the goal of reading like 12 books, so one book every month because I thought I have to focus on my studies and everything. Well, actually, so far I have read over 12 books already, and it's the middle of February. Um, so yeah, anyways, I genuinely don't know how I did it because I had to study a lot for my exams, but for some reason, I think I read like 10 books in January. Maybe less, maybe like 7 or 8, but still didn't plan on doing that. So let's start with the first book series. And actually, the first book I read this year was A Darker Shade of Magic. And I gotta be honest, I have read V. Schwab's books before, and I did like some of them, but there were also some that I really didn't like. So I wasn't really sure what to expect from this series. So I started the first book, and also for the first book, I think I only gave it like 3.5 stars. Yeah, 3.5 stars, which is like fine for me. Like, I think I gave Akatar maybe 3 stars as well, which is very generous considering I didn't love the series. So, so like I said, I only gave this one 3.5 stars, the first book, because I think it was just like with a lot of first books, you just have a lot of world building, and I just got a little bit bored at the beginning because there was so much explaining going on, I feel like. Um, and I also didn't love the main character, which did change after getting into the second book. So, what I really like about V. Schwab is just her writing because it's genuinely so good. So, even though I didn't love this book, I got really excited to start the next one immediately. So this book series takes place in London, but this is a little bit of a different kind of world with magic, obviously. So we have some people that can like jump between worlds. And the story takes place in 4 different Londons. There's White London, Red London, Black London, and Grey London, I'm pretty sure. And so our main character, Kel is his name, I think. He can travel between those worlds, and he's not being used, but he's a little bit of a messenger. So he's supposed to get messages between the like kingdoms, and every London is pretty different because, like I said, there's magic there. But over like the past, I don't know how many hundred maybe years, just in our past, in the history of these Londons, some of them were, for example, corrupted by magic, so they ended up not having magic at all anymore. And some of them actually ended up being ruled by people that just had too much power, too much magic. Our main character is from London where it's pretty much like equal. I'm not sure if that's true. It's been a while since I've read it, but I think like the people with magic are treated all right, but the people without magic are still in charge. I think so. Then we also have a second main character, and it's a girl. Her job is kind of being a thief. So she steals from people and then sells their stuff, and that's how she gets her money, I guess. And through some very random, weird coincidences, Cal and Lila, that's her name, they meet and end up having to work together in this magical world. So then we get to the second book, which I gave 4.5 stars. So, like, I mean, it's almost 5. Like, that's pretty fucking good. Um, like I said, the first book, I genuinely don't even remember much that happened in the first book. But the second and third are really, really close in my mind because I just had so much fun reading them and they were so interesting that I obviously remembered the whole plot. And the first book is more like a typical fantasy action book, I would say. The second book, the plot revolves more around fights in an arena. So I don't really know why, but for some reason it was giving me a little bit of a Six of Crows vibes. Like it wasn't really a heist that they were doing, but just like the characters were trying to outsmart other characters, and it was just so much fun and I loved it so much. And I genuinely don't know why, but this was giving me pirate fantasy in the best way, even though they're not really on pirate ships. Like the main character girl, Lila, she kind of wants to be a pirate, I think. Imagine this like a whole other book that I'm talking about right now. I don't know. It's been a while since I read it, but I'm pretty sure she wants to be a pirate, and she does spend some time on a pirate ship. But that's actually not really the focus of the plot at all. So it's really actually not a pirate fantasy, as in the plot is on a boat or something. But for some reason, the vibe just gave me pirates, and I loved it. And especially, it's just so interesting how V. Schwab writes her characters, because there are some characters that I personally didn't like at all in the beginning, but later on, she developed them so well and just gave them such great character growth that you just had to end up liking them in the end. And I don't know, it just made me really happy because I really don't like boring characters or like two-dimensional characters. For me, the story isn't as important. Like, if I don't like the characters, I'm not gonna read the book. That doesn't mean they have to be good people, by the way. Because, like I said, I really like Six of Crows, for example, and those are not great people, but they're just interesting characters. So if I think the characters are interesting and I personally like them, I'm gonna read the book. And that worked really well on this book. Like the characters were so fun and interesting and different, and yeah. I also did like the story a lot though. So like the world, the whole magic system was so different. I don't think it's similar to anything I've read before, especially with like the four different Londons. So I would say if you're bored of most fantasy books that have been coming out right now, because in my opinion it's become a little bit repetitive lately, I would definitely say try this one out, because it's just, in my opinion, completely different from any fantasy book I've read lately. So I really like this series a lot. And I gave the last book 5 stars, by the way. So after this book series, I really wanted to stay in like the book series world. I just wanted like a cool world with fun magic and interesting world building. I think that's the main thing. I really wanted interesting characters and interesting world building. So I decided to try the Locked Tomb series again. Because you gotta know, I tried to read Gideon the Ninth so many times already. Like, genuinely, it has been so many times. I tried reading this book years ago, but I think it might have been because I wasn't really in my reading flow era back then. I don't know. But right now, I'm just reading a lot. In like the past 2-3 years, I've been reading a lot. And before, I had a little phase when I just had to read so much for uni and all that stuff, so I didn't really feel motivated to read even more in my free time. And so I just wasn't really reading. So maybe that's why I wasn't loving it, and I just wasn't really getting into it. Like, I started it many times, and every time I just stopped after a little bit because I don't know why. I wasn't really getting into it, which genuinely confuses me, because when I started reading this book in the beginning of January. And yes, it was beginning because I genuinely read the Darker Shade of Magic series in like 3 days. So I think I started this one on like the 6th of January or something. When I started the first book again for the first time, I was having so much fun. I genuinely do not know why I was bored the last few times I started this book, because when I started it this time, from the very beginning, Gideon is just so fucking funny. Gideon is the best character, genuinely. And I don't know, I was having so much fun from the very beginning instantly. I definitely am that type of person that did not understand anything that was going on. Although I would say for Gideon it was fine. Mostly Nona. In Nona, I was just fully gone. But for Gideon, I was actually having so much fun. Like the humor is just so funny. Like genuinely, I think this is like the author's debut novel. It's just so well written, it's so funny, and the whole world is so interesting. So we're gonna get into it now. So in Gideon the Ninth, or like overall the Locked Tomb series, um, how do you explain this book? um, so I genuinely don't know how to explain because this is an insane book series. But Gideon is our main character in this book, and I genuinely don't know how to explain it, so I'm gonna look up what it says on Goodreads now. Oh my god, it's just so funny. So I'm just gonna read the very beginning of Goodreads. The Emperor needs necromancers. The ninth necromancer needs a swordsman. Gideon has a sword, some dirty magazines, and no more time for undead bullshit. So Gideon was raised on, like, I think the ninth planet. I'm not sure if that's right, but I think that's why it's called Gideon the Ninth. And another important character is called Harrow. So Gideon and Harrow have been living there since they were born. And Harrow is like the princess, I'm pretty sure that's what Gideon calls her, of the planet, I guess. And Gideon is more like a little lower class. Like she's just there. And they are really trying to make her more obedient, which is not happening because Gideon is just Gideon. So Harrow then gets the opportunity to become a necromancer, and I think she's been wanting to do that for a while, but she needs a swordsman, and so she decides that Gideon's gonna be the one to quote unquote protect her because Harrow doesn't need protection, but um yeah, and I genuinely don't know what to say else because this book series is just insane. So much happens. You will question yourself throughout the whole book series, thinking, am I just stupid? Have I studied literature and still cannot understand what's going on? Very possible, okay? But I swear Shakespeare is less complicated. Um Genuinely, Shakespeare's not that complicated. Um but like this book series is just, there are so many turns and twists that you just don't see coming. But in the end, it all ties together every time. So I read Gideon, Harrow, and Nona the Ninth, which are the 3 books that are out right now. I pretty much flew through them when I had to study for my exams. And I had a lot of fun with it. And I don't know if this is gonna convince anyone, but in my opinion, Harrow and Gideon are like Vi and Caitlin from Arcane. So if you've watched Arcane and you like that dynamic, but with like way more dirty jokes, um, you're really gonna like this. So yeah, like I said, I read all of these 3 books in a pretty short time, I think. And the problem is, and I knew that going in, so I don't even know why I read the book series now, because I already knew that there's gonna be another book, and we have no idea when it's coming out. So it was supposed to come out like 2 years ago already, I think, but it's still not out yet. And I'm definitely a fan of authors taking their time and rather writing how they actually want the book to be instead of just going like very, very fast, because that's just how the industry works now, where you have to just throw out a new book like every year at least. So I'm really happy that she is taking her time, but I am suffering a little bit. So that was the Locked Tomb series. I would say for Harrow the Ninth, I didn't enjoy it as much at first because, like I said, always at around like between 60 and 80%, there's like a twist and then everything comes together and then you're just sitting there the whole time like, what? So at that point I always enjoy the books, but for Harrow it did feel like a little bit of a drag to me in the beginning. Also because no, I can't say that. That's a spoiler. Um anyways, so then I read Nona, and Nona is a child, so Nona is very much more of an innocent character and you just feel so much for her. And I heard that a lot of people think that Nona dragged a little bit, actually a lot, in the beginning, which I can definitely understand, but for me, it was just still so much fun to read because, like I said, I would say I'm more of a character driven person and I just loved Nona as a character. So I was fine just to be with her on this journey, not knowing where it's gonna go because I just liked hearing her worldview. So yeah, I really enjoyed that series a lot. And I really need the last book now, okay? But I guess we're all in this together, waiting now, I guess. Yeah. So next, I have been wanting to start my Brandon Sanderson journey for a while, but I never really knew where to start. So I never really knew which book was the right place to start with. I don't know, because he has written a lot of books and they're all, I don't know if it's all of them, but most of them are in the same universe. So even if they're not connected to each other, I do feel like there is some kind of like correlation. And I just didn't want to read it in the wrong order because I'm like very specific with that. So then I found a video where he himself explains how to read his books. And he actually says if you want to read the series, you should start with Mistborn. So I bought Mistborn. But then, and that was the funniest coincidence, honestly, because literally the day that I wanted to start Mistborn, I got Tress in my library. And you have to know it wasn't in my library before because I use an online library and you can add like a notification. So it's gonna give you a notification if the book ever comes to your library. So it's not that I'm waiting because someone else has it, but the book is just not in my library available so far. And you can tell them to notify you if it ever comes to the library. And I guess I did that like years ago, maybe last year. I don't even remember putting that book on my notifications list. But then on the day, not even the day, like I'm pretty sure I really wanted to start Mistborn like in a few hours. And then I got the message on my phone that this book just got available in the library. And so I thought, well, it's a standalone. And Sanderson has also said that you can start with this one if you want more like a whimsical fairy tale vibe. And since I had just gotten from like all these big fantasy worlds, I thought maybe just like a little sweet standalone would be cool. So I read that, loved it so much. I really want more whimsical fairy tale writing from him now because I have read Mistborn now as well, and so I can compare, and it's obviously very different. So I really would love more whimsical fairy tales from this man because he writes it so beautifully. It was also a pirate fantasy, and at that point I just realized that I really love pirate fantasies, and I think I need more of that in my life actually. Um, so yeah, I really like Tress of the Emerald Sea, and that book is about a girl called Tress. And she lives on an island that's like pretty small. She has never really left it. But then her quote unquote boyfriend, because his father actually doesn't want them to be together. So the father just ships himself and the son off and they leave. And then when the father comes back, it turns out that he has given up his son to an evil sorceress. And so Tress decides, even though she has never even left her island yet, that she is now gonna go to find this evil sorceress and save her man. And to do that, she has to sneak up on a ship, which then gets, how do you call it again? I don't know, but pirates take over the ship. So that's like kind of a bad coincidence for her. But it actually turns out that those are very fun pirates. And so she just embarks on this dramatic journey with the pirates. And yeah, wants to save her boyfriend. And I really like this. It was so fun. Like I said, I just really like whimsical, funny stories with very quirky characters. That's really my thing. So I loved this book. It was perfect for me. So then, like I said, I read Mistborn afterwards, and I gotta be honest, Mistborn is fully different, but I expected that going into it. So I was having a lot of fun, and I really liked this book. I gotta be honest, the main character, not the main character, but like one of the main characters is called Cal. Oh my god, I'm gonna get it wrong. But the point is, I was confusing his name the whole time and was saying Calcifer. I don't know if you know, like the flame from Howl's Moving Castle, but it's called Calcifer. And that's what, in my mind, this man is called. Like, I think he's called Calicer or something. Um, yeah, something like that. Calicer, something. So in my mind, I just always ended up thinking Calcifer. So that's who he is in my mind. But yeah, like I said, Mistborn is fully different. In this book series, we're following a girl who has not been treated well by her family. She is also more part of the lower class in this world, but she has always had like this thing inside her and she doesn't really know what that is and what is going on. So then she meets this group of men, I guess, and they want to recruit her because it turns out this like feeling, this stuff that she has always felt on the inside is actually magic. And not everyone has magic in this world. And those people are called Mistborn. And with this one, it was the same as with A Darker Shade of Magic. I just really felt like it was a very different setting in a fantasy world that I haven't really had that much or read that much before. Like the magic system was so different and interesting, and it was just so much fun. Oh, and like I said, the other one compared to Six of Crows, this one is about a heist. So it's not really similar to Six of Crows, but it's definitely just as fun because we're on a heist. We're gonna. I don't know if that's a spoiler, so if you don't want to know, just skip a little bit. But we're gonna try to kill the emperor, I think. In this world, it's an emperor. So we're putting up together a crew. And we also want to build a whole army. And then we want to kill the emperor. So our main character, our main girl, actually has to become high society and start wearing pretty dresses, which she doesn't like at all at the beginning. Girl, please. Like who doesn't want to wear gorgeous gowns, okay? But yeah, so she doesn't really like it at the beginning, but she just has to go undercover to find out some information and stuff. And also, she has to start learning and using her powers. And that's the book. I have not read more books so far. So I did read the first one, and I already have the second one, but I kind of wanted to wait until I can get the third one before I read the second one because I just feel like the second one is gonna end on like a cliffhanger because the first one ended alright. It was just like the ending of a first book, I guess, in like a series. But I feel like usually for the second one, it always starts to end more dramatic so that you want to get to the next one. So I just wanted to wait. But I'm definitely gonna start it soon and I'm really excited. So next I read. What did I read next? Oh yeah, next I read another standalone, and it's by T. Kingfisher, and this was my first T. Kingfisher book actually, and it's called Swordheart, and I'm actually just gonna like fly through these a little bit because I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. It was just like I personally would call it romantasy. So it was really like a romance fantasy book, but like you could have left the whole magic world and fantasy out of it, and it would have been the same. So it's basically really just a romance book that takes place in a fantasy world. And it was definitely very fun, and I definitely enjoyed it a lot, but that's just not my favorite genre. But I did think it was one of the better romance fantasy books that I have read. So that's that. In this book, we follow a girl, and she meets a man that can turn into a sword. So the book actually starts with her wanting to kill herself with that sword. Um, but then it turns into a man. And he's just like, what are we doing right now? What is going on here? She's also naked for some reason, I think. I don't remember why. Maybe she's not. But, or she's in a nightgown or something. And he's like, what have I stumbled into? And then they embark on a journey together because she doesn't want to marry her cousin. I swear to God, this sounds so weird. It was a great book. I had a lot of fun, okay? So then I wanted to stay on the Kingfisher vibes and I started Paladin's Grace. But then, the same as before, Thornhedge, which is another book, more like a novella by T. Kingfisher, got available in my library. And it was again the same. Like, it was not in my library before, but right when I wanted to read the next T. Kingfisher book, it became available in my library. So then I read that first because it's pretty short. Like I said, it's a novella. I read that in like a few hours, I think. And I really liked it. It's a Rapunzel. No, it's not. It's a Sleeping Beauty retelling, but actually from the POV of the fairy that made the curse. It's kind of like, you know, Maleficent, but it's actually not Maleficent because this is just like a fairy that just wanted to live her life, but then ended up being trapped in this whole drama, having to be around this castle that Sleeping Beauty is inside and sleeping, and she just has to keep the princess away from waking her. And then one of the princes, I guess, I don't know if he's a prince, but one of the guys that wants to get there, actually starts to talk to her, and he actually thinks she's kind of cute. So yeah, I really liked it. But like I said, at first I thought it was Rapunzel, and that made me realize, why do we not have any Rapunzel retellings? I want a Rapunzel retelling now. Like, I did like the Sleeping Beauty one, but I've seen that a lot. Like I said, Maleficent and stuff. And I've seen it a lot more times actually already. So, but anyways, so then I read Paladin's Grace. Also, like I said, T. Kingfisher. And it's a book series and it takes place in the same universe. So I already knew the universe from the standalones that I just read already. And yeah, like I said, it's the same. It's just like a little cute fantasy book. So if you need like a palate cleanser, maybe if you've been in a reading slump, maybe that would be a good book because it's just like a fun, cute fantasy love story, I guess. And I have read the second one as well so far. And I started the third one, but I have not finished it yet because then the next book I started was Dune. And that's the last one that I've read lately. Haven't finished it yet, but I have actually watched the first two movies that are out so far. And it's so interesting because genuinely, when I started this book, I didn't think I would like it as much just because I already knew the plot. And it actually turns out they really followed the plot. So, like, this is a great adaptation. I actually want to make a video about that as well, maybe. But yeah, this is a really great adaptation. When I started the first book, it genuinely felt like I could see the movie while reading this because it's so similar what happens and just the dialogue as well. It's pretty close to what happens in the book. And for some reason, I'm still enjoying it so much. So yeah, that's where I am right now. I am reading Dune. I'm not finished with it yet, although I am like, I don't know, 60-70% through, so pretty far. And after that, I think I'm gonna finish the third Paladin book. And then I'm gonna get back into Mistborn, I think. Or I'm gonna start the second Dune one. I don't know yet, but I really want to get back into the Mistborn world because it was just so interesting. So I'm not sure which one I'm gonna do. But yeah, those are all the books I have read so far this year. And genuinely, this has been such a great start in the year, book-wise for me, genuinely. Like I said, I didn't even expect to read that much, but for some reason, I just found so many books that I enjoyed so much, that I liked so much, that I just couldn't stop reading. So I'm very intrigued what's gonna happen next. There are also some new releases that I'm very excited about. For example, the third book in the Emily Wilde's book series came out, I think, a week or two ago. And also, what has come out lately is Rebel Witch, which is the second book to Heartless Hunter. That was the first book. And there was also a romantasy that I actually enjoyed a lot. So those two, I really want to read these since they've just come out. And in March, we obviously have Sunrise on the Reaping, which I'm so excited about. Oh my goodness. I genuinely can't wait to make Hunger Games my whole personality again. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this little book talk with me. I really liked it. I love talking about books, which is why I'm here. And I'm so excited for the next books I'm gonna read. So definitely stay tuned for the next video. Bye!